All right, let's get going. All right, I need your help today. My allergies are terrible, so help me out. If you guys could do some problems on the board, I will be on my other laptop taking inventory of the textbooks. So if you brought yours today, awesome. And told some of you guys to hold off a second. I want to get this going so we can make sure to get through the review. It sounds like we got through number 16. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What I asked you All right, can I get volunteers to do A and C?
No, he said I do ABC. Or do you want to just switch? But I don't know. Now let's do it. You get 93.
All right, if you have a place today, please come on up.
Do I even need to like oh, it's not hard. I'll do A. Yeah. I already have that down.
Yeah, you forgot? What? You forgot?
Because he's just like, you get 93. He's just like, he just really fast.
Hey, wait. Oh, no, I am not. I have.
Oh, wait, size should be the nearest 10.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, you're not wrong. I expressed it.
really? What?
Quentin, if your butler or something.
Are you that?
Imagine finding
I remember those videos you showed me on side one time. Yeah. You still got those? Oh, okay. I was just wondering. No. My bad handwriting.
All right, you guys get that? For this? Everybody have a chance to check? All right, what do we have to be careful of when we have SSS? Law of cosines, right? And what angle should we find first? The biggest one, because when you finish it off with law of sines, it avoids that ambiguous case, okay? So we want to find angle B first. Well, if we want to find angle B, we need to have side B squared. remember, the best way to do this to avoid order operations issues is to subtract, and then divide. So 8 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared. Subtract, and then divide by -2 times 6 times 7. All right, so we have parentheses 8 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared divided by -2 times 6 times 7. And don't forget, take the cosine inverse of that to uncover the angle. 75.5. Did this ask us to round to the nearest whole degree?
Yeah.
So 76 degrees. All right, to find A now. Now, I'll be honest with you. Even though I rounded to 76 degrees, when I do the calculations to find A, I'm gonna leave it as accurate as possible, so that rounding issue doesn't affect angle A. All right, it should still be close. So we're gonna do the sine of 75.5 over 8 equals the sine of A over 7. So I want to see that setup on the exam. Yes, it's going to be all paper pencil. So I'm going to see your work, show your setup. You can do most of the rest in the calculator, I would say. So here's the trick. Do you agree I'm actually going to take the sine of that whole previous answer and then times 7? So 7 times the sine of the previous answer. 7 times the sine of that, and then divide by 8. And I'm getting 0.847. And what do I have to do with that to get angle A? Sine inverse. Good. Sine inverse of the answer. I did that whole problem without ever writing that 75.5 as a decimal, right? It was just stored in the calculator the whole time. So 57.91. And then that plus 75.5, 180 minus the answer, 46.59. And on the line, it would be 47 degrees. I guess this would be 58 degrees. How'd we do on that one? All right. This stuff was pretty fresh in our minds, right? All right. For the, do we need to talk a lot about these, or are we good? Okay. So I'm actually gonna put up. We got through more of this during 6th period, so let's just check the answers for what we have done so far. For this one, I got 95 degrees. For this one, I got 122 degrees. Tell.
How do we get 95 degrees?
There's a couple ways to do it. If this is an inscribed angle, isn't its arc double that angle? Alright, yeah, you have to study that. This is an inscribed angle. This one's 75, so this is everything left out of the 360. All right, any other questions on those two? All right, next two. They asked us to find the angle LJM. So B was 3.5. Had to plug it back in, and I got 10.5 degrees for that. For the next one, letter D, I got 65 degrees and 116 degrees. Any questions on those? All right, this came from the fact that the angle is half of the inscribed arc, or the arc is double the angle. Now, things you should be careful of too. Remember, an outside angle, the rule is one half outer arc minus inner arc. Just to refresh that. If it's an outside angle, one half outer arc minus inner arc. It could be. Mm-hmm. Inside angle, it's half of these arcs added together. And again, the inscribed angle is just half the arc. All right, any questions on those circle stuff? All right. I know we're going to need to review completing the square. It's been a while. I remember it was on the OST, and you guys, I remember you talking the next day about how you're like, oh, I saw this, but I had no idea what to do. It's called completing the square to get the center of the radius. By the way, we got an email yesterday from a couple of different people. One, they totaled up all the state tests for different subject areas for the schools in Stark County that have reported it. Jackson hasn't reported yet. Greene hasn't reported yet. But of those, our geometry scores, man, they were way above others. Like we're 7% above anybody that's close. Like the next closest person is 7% beyond next closest school. You guys did awesome on that test. So congratulations, you did a great job on that. We went up, get this, passing score on the state test compared to last year. Our school, like so Mrs. Wolf's classes, my classes, Mr. Marco's classes, the passing rate went up 18%. It's huge. So you guys did a great job. All right, so this is the one where we put the x terms next to each other. Now, here's the issue. Did you guys notice there's no y term here? Yeah, so take good notes. This one wasn't completed very well when I walked around and checked. So make sure you guys are understanding it. I think it'll come back when I explain it, but it might be something you want to practice a couple of on your own. So if there's no other y term, then it's not going to be like y minus 5 squared. It's just going to be y squared, right? This is the one where we moved the 27 over. But we had to allow a blank for the red because whatever you add over there to make it a nice factorable trinomial, you can't just add it to one side. We had to add it to the other side. Now here's how we do this. We take the b term, which is negative 12. We divide by 2 and we square it. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. When you square it is 36. I add it to the left side of the equation. I add it to the right side of the equation. And my little hint or trick for you, what we just did is we added a number, 36, that made it a perfect square. Remember what that is? It's like 8 times 8 is 64. 7 times 7 is 49. Bless you. Something times itself is called a perfect square. So we made this, bless you, we made this trinomial factor perfectly. And what it's going to be is x minus 6 squared. And my little trick for you was to take this number with a sign inside the parentheses before you square it, and that's the number that goes down there. You guys remember this? Call it maybe the magic number. Okay. Now, we didn't have to do that with the y terms because it's already, isn't y squared already a perfect square? It's y times y. We combine terms on the right side. What is 36 minus 27, 9. So that is the equation of the circle in standard form. That's the equation. Check for that. But then you have to label the center and the radius. Now remember, the formula for a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. So if it's x minus h, isn't h positive 6? Right? We already have the minus there. H is the number that goes there. Some of you wanted to remember it as its opposite. Like if that's a minus 6 inside, then the x value of the center is positive 6. What's the y value of the center? The y value of the center is 0. And the radius is? Careful. That's r squared, right? So square root of that number is 3. How do we feel about that one? Questions before I do another one? All right, I'm going to do this one a little faster. So we have x squared minus 14x plus some number plus y squared plus 2y plus some number equals, subtract 41. You guys have a question? You guys good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Now we have to add the blue number and add the red number. I ran out of room, but those will both be over there. Negative 14 divided by 2.
40.
Negative 14 divided by 2.
-7.
Negative 7. So isn't that what goes in here? But when you square it, you get 49, right? All right, 2 divided by 2. 1. When you square it, you get 1. So what goes inside? It's 1. And then I have to add it on the right side. Negative 41 plus 49 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Ooh, there's a coincidence. There's my equation. My center is what? 7, negative 1. And my radius is... Now, I don't want this to be some gimmick that you just memorize, okay? So how can I check that answer? If you're a person who likes to check your work, okay, you have extra time you want to check your work, couldn't you FOIL out x minus 7 times x minus 7? Isn't it x squared minus 7x minus 7x plus 49? That's x squared minus 14x plus 49, right? So I could check this to make sure. How many of you kind of bothered you that this was just a 1 here? Like, doesn't it kind of look weird, right? So you could FOIL that out and say y plus 1 times y plus 1 is y squared plus y plus 1 times 1. That's y squared plus 2y plus 1. So you can check it to make sure it works out. Questions so far? All right, what is the area formula for a circle? Pi r squared. They asked us for the radius. They told us the area is 144 pi. Don't let pi bother you. Pi is just a number. If it was 5 times x, and you have the x over here, you divide both sides by, I'm sorry, not 5x, Yeah, if it was 5x, divide both sides by 5. We're trying to get r by itself, divide both sides by pi. They cancel. R squared equals 144. So the radius is 12 inches. Good on that? So if you're organizing what you need to study for the exam, I would put, those, you're not gonna have a formula sheet, but I would write down the equation of a circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. I would write down area of a circle. I would write down the arc length formula. Did you guys remember this without the notes or help? Yeah. So that should be kind of on your radar. That man, I needed to look this up. I better study that formula. Okay. Isn't arc length? Well, what's the formula for all the way around the circle? Don't say 360. 2 pi r, right? And I use the analogy of walking around a pond. And if I told you, I was like, ooh, I walked 360 degrees. You shouldn't be impressed. You don't know how big the pond was, right? But if I say, how far did you walk? 360 is not a length. 2 pi r is the whole circumference, right? But we're not going around the whole circle. We're only going a certain measure out of 360. Let's see. So our arc length from A to B is 2 pi times 5 times 46 out of 360. I'm going to write it both in terms of pi and rounded as a decimal. 2 times 5 times 46 out of 360. Now that's not a very nice number. We can turn it into a fraction possibly. So 23 over 18 pi meters. Okay. Now if we multiply that by pi, we're going to get the actual length in meters, which is 4.01 meters. So to put this in context, if this radius is 5 meters, does that seem reasonable that length around that part of the arc is like 4.01? Seems reasonable, doesn't it? So this is the formula you need to know. Questions on that? Page.
Are we gonna have to put it both in terms of pi and the decimal?
You need to be able to do it both ways. Yeah. Now it's not going to be this ugly if it's in terms of pi. That's pretty ugly. Like maybe it's like 10 pi or 20 pi.
Is he gonna tell us on the thing?
Yeah. Or that would be a fair question if it didn't. You could just ask. I'd have to accept it either way. Okay. All right. Area of the sector formed by ACB. So now we're talking about a slice of pi. So the area of a sector is pi r squared. That's the whole circle. We're not doing the whole circle. We're doing a fraction of the circle. So pi times 16 squared times 112 out of 360. So, yeah, these are ugly in terms of pi. That would probably creep you guys out if they put that was the answer on the exam. Most people probably have that number, right? 250.21. Now, what would the correct units on that be? Centimeters squared. Good. It's an area. Good so far? All right. Remember how population density was like people per square mile? That'd be a unit for it. Or like deer per square acre, something like that. So we have a circular region with a 14-mile radius. Find the population density in people per square mile. All right. Well, how many square miles are in this circle? What'd you guys get?
615.
Go ahead. 615. Thank you. Now that would be in square miles. So wouldn't you have to take how many people there are? This is how I remember it. You're going to let the units tell you how to set it up. Aren't the units people per square mile? Right? That means divide. So if it's miles per hour, and you want to find out how far you travel or how fast you traveled on a trip, you take the miles divided by the hours. For people per square mile, are we going to take the people divided by the square miles? Did you get about
149.
149? So 0.41 or about 149 people per square mile. Make sense? Question? I see some people confused. Good. All right. Haven't done probability in a while, have we? All right, you pick a 10. Do not replace it. Pick another 10. Well, how many 10s could we possibly pick that first draw in? 4. So 4 out of
52.
good. And then, so isn't it multiplication? And then you didn't replace it. So how many are there now? 3 out of 51. There's one less card in the deck. All right, about 8.0045. Or a 0.4% chance that would happen, right? Now I'm gonna double check, but sometimes these are nice to write it as fractions because it gets kind of messy. Like, what do I round to? Like, if I said round to the nearest hundredth, that'd be 0, wouldn't it? I mean, that's not right. So sometimes it's nice to have it as a fraction, decimal, but go to enough decimals that you start getting numbers there, and then probably 2 decimal places after that. Like, so, or sorry, 1 after. So once you start getting numbers, maybe go 1 more. I didn't tell you on this how to round. Page.
Are we supposed to simplify it down? Because that's what I do.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll simplify the fraction right like that. Yeah. All right, what's the probability of a heart or a 6? When we read or probability, what should we be thinking of? Good. P of H plus P of 6 minus P of H and 6. This was the paving 619 and market example, right? You might have counted some things twice, so you have to subtract off the overlap. What's P of H? Yeah, leave it unreduced, okay? So what's P of H? Did you say 13 out of 52? Now we want to leave that one unreduced because when we add fractions, we want them to have the same denominator. So what's P of 6? 4 out of 52. Is there any overlap? Is there ever a card that is a heart and a 6?
Yes.
Yeah, so that 13 hearts, we counted that 6 of hearts, didn't we? And those 4 6s, one of them was a 6 of hearts. So we counted it here and we counted it here. So we need to subtract off the 1 out of 52 that has both of them on it, right? 16 out of 52, which reduces into 4/13. Or if you wrote it as a decimal, you can type it in your calculator. Good so far. All right, pick a diamond, replace it, and then pick a 3. I hope you're thinking multiplication. Yes? Multiplication? No?
Yes.
What's probably picking a diamond?
13.
Replace it, so there's still 52 cards. How many 3s are there?
40.
40, 12. Now be careful. I shouldn't have to say this, but when you're multiplying fractions, you multiply the denominators. When you add fractions, you keep the common denominator. All right, you can reduce that. You can type it in your calculator, but that's the number that you're looking for. All right, pick a 7 or a king. All right, what'd you guys get for this one? Yeah.
3.
Say it again. 8 over 52?
The whole answer is
Oh, yeah. Hold on, sorry. P of 7 is
4.
4 out of 52. How many kings are there?
4.
And are there any 7 in king? So there's 8 out of 52. All right, I'm going to go down this column. Help me out real quick. Is this 36, 30, 1, 3, 51. Now be careful. Some of you messed this up on the quiz way back when, and it threw off all of your problems. Now, I didn't count off each time if your denominator was wrong because I don't think that's fair, but man, it could really mess up a lot. So don't forget, you're adding this total column, and it should match this total row. Okay. So help me out with this column. What is this column total up to? 95. This column. Now don't add these together. Either add up the column or add up the row. What do you get? That is our total. How many slips of paper are in this bag that have all of these attributes and the children and adults on it? So what's the probability of picking an S? Well, aren't there 30 S's? 30 out of 201. Now, when we do a table like this, listen up. When we do a table like this, don't reduce the fractions. Don't reduce the fractions, all right? It's easier on both of us. All right, P of T or H. P of T plus P of H. Is there any overlap?
No.
So P of T, 31 out of 201. P of H, 53 out of 201. There's nothing on it that has a T and an H, correct? So we're just going to add those together and get 84 out of 201. All right, C's, 95. S's, 30. Now, be careful. We're taking the C's and the S's, right? Sorry, or the S's. Now, here's where we're going to have to subtract off the overlap. That 8 got counted twice, right? So we have, what's my first fraction? Let's see if I can write it down. What'd you guys get for P of C? Yep, 95 out of 201. P of S? Minus the 8 out of the 201. 117 out of 200. Questions on that? Now, some people still struggle with the and. Now, and, yes, you can multiply. But do you remember how we did, there is a independent multiplication rule and there's a dependent multiplication rule, right? Like the dependent would be I pick a card out, I didn't replace it, I pick a second card. I need to change the denominator. You don't need to worry about this if it's a table like this. Okay, the easiest way to do and probability using a table is to look for where it is both an A and an I. Where is it both? And means both. 17, right? Out of 201. Do you guys understand that? How about T and I? Where is it both a T and an I? It's not. So it's 0 chance. 0% chance that's going to happen. Take a moment. We come down to our last problem as a group this year. Come a long way. Come a long way. All right. Remember, this is how you have to read it. It seems out of order. P of F given C. The denominator is about to change. It's not going to be 201. P of F given C. So given that it's a child, how many children are there? What's the probability of picking an F? 36 out of 95. All right. Who? All right, the board of shame.
We don't get a pizza party.
Jared. Quinn. Ryan, pick up my number. Yes. That's what you get, boy. Jared, don't do it. Oh, there's more? Did Jared come? Oh, yeah. No, not you. That's exactly what happened. I'm sorry.
Hey guys, real quick. If you haven't brought in your book, please Please don't forget. All right, bring it to me on Monday. All right, if you didn't see the exam schedule, it's up here. I'll see you guys Monday.